Alright, let's get to it. Hello everyone and welcome back to Eutopia. Today I am talking with my friend Richard. Richard is a resident in psychiatry here in Switzerland, and he was kind enough to sort of give me an interview, and he agreed to have a chat with me. So without further ado, let's welcome my friend Richard. So Richard, thanks for coming to my channel.
Thanks for having me, a pleasure.
We know already each other for a long time. We
Yes.
studied together in Lithuania, medicine. So we were together actually in the same group
In the
for
same
6
group
years.
for the whole 6 years.
Every day, 8 in the morning, till who knows how long
Yeah,
those long classes.
a lot of memories.
And then eventually we graduated and we all parted our own different ways. We studied in this international university, right? So everyone coming from different countries. Then each one of us parted in our own direction. And for some reason,
Chance
destiny,
had it that we actually met again.
we actually met again, and we live
It's just neither of our
approximately,
countries.
it's neither of our countries, and we live approximately 1 hour away from each other.
Exactly. So it was really nice to find you again.
Yeah. And, right, and you are a resident in psychiatry.
Psychiatry, yeah.
I wanted to invite you here. I wanted to invite you here because it happens all of the time that I make these videos and I explain my experience in Switzerland or my experience with medicine and the whole process of getting approved, among many other topics. But then again, it's only my opinion, and having only one opinion, you may still be wrong, even if it's an informative opinion. You may still be wrong. So having you there to chip in is going to be a great help.
Sure. I arrived in Switzerland directly, graduating from Lithuania, with the idea of doing some internships in surgery.
Surgery, okay.
Yeah, I did multiple internships in surgery, throughout the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And
right, I think it would be wise to say right now that you do not speak any German.
I don't speak any German.
You are actually French.
Yeah, I was born in France. I have the French nationality, which actually allowed me to have the recognition of my diploma, since I have the European nationality and the European diploma. So the Swiss recognition was just a formality, and paying the 1,500 bucks.
Around 1,000 bucks.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, the internships I did in surgery in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, with the idea that I wanted to go into surgery, since personal backstory, my father is a surgeon, and I had a lot of surgical practice and experience with him. It was really an opportunity that wasn't given to many other persons. So I felt like going into surgery, I had a step ahead of the others, and I could find my place there. But
can I ask you something?
of course,
Why did you do internships when you already had the recognition? Why not just go straight to become a resident?
because I didn't even try to apply to positions of internships, because as far as we knew it, it would be very difficult to get hired in surgery and internal medicine if you didn't have internships and experience in their country. That's something, that's a good information to have. That's something that Switzerland, Swiss hospitals really value, especially if you're a foreigner, to have experience in their country. So thus the internships before applying to residencies. So going back to the experience of doing those internships in surgery in Switzerland, it wasn't good.
Why?
For a multitude of reasons, and I think this applies more or less to a lot of medical units where there is a lot of turnover, where there's a lot of stress and pressure, a lot of big units and surgery. The environments was really toxic. At least that's how I felt it. That's how I went through it. Things weren't communicated to me in a way that I felt that would give me a chance to be successful. I was kind of left on my own, and they were expecting stuff from me without telling me exactly what I was being evaluated on. I didn't feel a lot of support from the people around me, and the work in itself, surgery in itself, when you got the opportunity to go to the OR, or even the few chances of if you're in the ER, like having to switch for some patients and stuff, this I was absolutely like capable, and this was the parts where I took some pleasure. But it was so few in between, like between like the parts of letting you do stuff or being allowed to do it and getting recognition for it, and it was like all surrounded by such a toxic environment between like medical chiefs, medical colleagues, nurses. Anyway, it really wasn't a good experience. And at that point, like for various personal reasons, I wanted to stay in Switzerland, in a specific area of Switzerland, while not knowing really what I wanted to do, since like surgery was such an experience that that didn't leave a good mark. I applied like in all like the small rural hospitals that were like around the area I wanted to stay in, and I got a positive answer, obviously, from psychiatry, because like we know, there's always like positions available in psychiatry.
So let me recap shortly.
Mm-hmm.
See if I understood this correctly. Based on the presumption that it was going to be very difficult to become a resident directly,
Mm-hmm.
you decided to do, let's say, hospitations, like what do you call it?
In French, stage, internships,
Yeah,
kind
internships.
of like.
Right, in surgery are many different hospitals,
Mm-hmm.
and basically you got a very negative experience, not just from the job itself as a surgeon, but the whole environment,
Yeah.
like a toxic culture environment.
Yeah, and the work in itself, sorry to interrupt, was also not really what I was expecting.
You said it's because you chose it because of sort of a family influence or tradition.
Family
Did you have
influence.
any love towards it?
Good question. Now, in retrospect, I can say no. Now I can say that it was almost kind of a comfort choice, or the reassuring choice, knowing that, okay, choosing this direction meant maybe I had a path that I could follow, given like my experience in it and maybe like the possible help I could get in. But yeah, it wasn't absolutely out of love
And
or passion.
And looking for eventually a job to actually become a resident, did you feel cornered in this tiny piece of Switzerland because of language? And do you feel like the language sort of pushes you towards that side exclusively?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like this is something your viewers already know, since it's something you already discussed in your video, but Switzerland is like in itself a really small country,
Mm-hmm.
divided like in almost like 3 different parts based on the language you speak. And the Swiss-German part is the biggest one, the Italian is really insignificant, and you got like a small pieces on the left that's like French speaking.
Yeah.
So if you're like a French speaker and you like are even like more specific in your residencies, you really don't have a lot of opportunities in Switzerland, such as other countries as Germany or France.
Okay, so given that situation, you applied everywhere, all of the regional hospitals, all of the small ones, which you probably assumed statistically you had more chances to get in than the big ones, the university hospitals.
You mean internships or
Already
for?
for residents?
No, like I said before, I applied only like in the small region I was in because I wanted to stay in that region.
Okay. Right, and so you applied for everything that was around. It didn't matter if it was surgery, psychiatry.
I didn't apply to surgery, I applied to internal medicine, psychiatry, and geriatrics. Yeah.
And was it luck that you just happened to get a yes from psychiatry?
Yeah, luck, and yeah, it's the first answer that I got basically,
Okay.
and the one like in the timetable, in the time frame that fit best.
And at this point, when you got a positive answer from psychiatry, did you have any love towards psychiatry?
Absolutely not.
And how did you feel about the idea of working in psychiatry?
First of all, like at that point in my life, having the security of a contract for like just a year, but with a salary, which is pretty good in Switzerland, that's another topic, and like having the proximity to where I wanted to stay, it was such a relief.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. But I was also like feeling a bit unsettled by the uncertainty that was coming. I didn't really know what to expect working in psychiatry. I never did any internships in psychiatry. I remember like during our classes, during our studies, like
Psychiatry was like...
the passage in psychiatry was, yeah, it was weird. It didn't leave a good mark on me either.
I don't even remember.
You don't remember once like when we went through a unit of like eating disorder, behavioral eating disorder, where like it was just like young girls, like 10 to 15, that were all anorexic and stuff like that, and like it was like on a room. We had a room at the end of a floor that was really like badly lit, and like the chief brought a patient that was like, I don't know, depressed or bipolar, like in front of the whole class, and she was asking her questions. We didn't understand anything.
Yeah, that was weird as well. We don't do that, right?
So yeah, I didn't have any internships in psychiatry, and I didn't know really what to expect.
And you started working there. Look, here's the thing that I would like to compare with you, because during our studies, we all wanted to be a surgeon at some point, and we all wanted to be a cardiologist at some point. For me, it was a phase, one of those phases.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a surgeon, and then I wanted to be a cardiologist, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in my case, for example, during 6 years, you have to do internships also around. And after graduating, I didn't go directly to Switzerland because I was very unsure and I didn't speak German at the time. So I went around doing internships around Switzerland and Germany. And I repeated all of the specialties. And I hated everything, including surgery.
But you didn't try psychiatry though.
I didn't try psychiatry, here's the thing, exactly. No, I didn't. And that's my point. In the end, you don't know what you want based on the studies. Maybe based on the studies you already do know, but the practice may be different from what you studied. And maybe something that when you studied it didn't sound so good, when you practice it, turns out it's amazing. I had the luck, or I believe I had the luck, to encounter anesthesia, and I did it, and I thought, oh my god, I love this, and that's it. And then I decided to go to anesthesia. But there's this specialties, for example, psychiatry, where you normally wouldn't just go out of interest or passion of love, and they sort of stay within the shadows. Let's say in the medicine, they're never in the first page, of cool specialties to practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I can understand why it has its reasons. And I think it's important for me to say that my experience is very, very subjective. Like, this is the way I went through things. This is how I felt things happened, and like there was a lot of circumstances that happened for me, like to appreciate like my experience the way I did. But so yeah, like I was saying, I ended up in psychiatry like almost by coincidence, and it just took me actually like a couple of weeks to make up my mind to say, wow, this is actually what I want to do. And the more time passed, the more like I was comforted with this decision, even though of course like some days came where you feel like your faith is a bit shaken up, or like you start questioning everything again. But it's part of everything, I think. And the thing that hit me the most was I'm able to be a doctor without having to put on a white coat, kind of like physically and metaphorically also. Like being able to just have like this emotional connection, person to person, and feel like I can help this person just by being there for her, first of all. And then like everything else that you can do, the medical aspect, the therapeutical aspect, and all of this, like comes as an extra. But just like with your presence, your empathy, your listening skills, you're already doing something for someone while being a doctor. And this was mind-blowing for me. Like all this time, like I could have had this, because for me, like during this whole time, and I'm sure for all of people that like were in this situation, medicine is like just this image of like white coats, emergency units, stress, patients lying in beds.
Give 20 milligrams of metoprolol.
Yes, yes. And actually, it doesn't have to be that if maybe this isn't the part that like you like about surgery, about medicine. And actually enjoying the idea of helping people, of building like emotional connections, of taking time speaking with the person, like having an interest in them. And again, like I say, it's very subjective, and this is absolutely not for everyone. Like I remember like people who had studies with, or other doctors, or for them just the idea of having to speak with people was just a pain.
Well, don't go to surgery, don't you?
Exactly, or radiology.
Or to anesthesia.
Yeah, like having like the least amount of contact possible with the patient.
Mhm.
And forcing a person that has like maybe this type of approach to work in psychiatry would absolutely not be pleasant for them. And this is like something I'm very aware of.
All right. How about you tell me a bit about your day, or what does the normal day of a resident in psychiatry look like?
Okay, well, I'm not going to tell you about my day, since my day is a bit atypical, since like I'm the head of the unit in an outpatient day clinic. Let's talk about rather a regular day of an
Of a resident.
Yeah, of a resident intern in psychiatry at the hospital. It consists like mainly of being like responsible for between 8 or 10 patients per unit, like in your unit, and like in the morning having like the staff meeting, doing the visits, like seeing patients with your chief, something that like is very similar to other units, except here like you usually don't see patients in their bed. You see them like in a consultation, like sitting like on a chair, like face to face. Depends like how much time you want to take, but if it's an admission that just arrived the day before and you want to get some time to understand the situation and decide the treatment plan, it can take like maybe up to an hour. If it's a patient that you see multiple times and you know really well, it can take up to 15-20 minutes. After doing your consultations, then like of course like the admin work, writing like the notes of what happened, doing the administrative paperwork of like when the patient is supposed to leave the clinic. Eventually also like during the day when you have admissions, like people arrive to the unit, also like doing the consultation, the visit, and then like writing everything. Of course like all the small stuff like the prescription, the administrative paperwork and whatnot. This is like in a clinic, in a hospital. And then there is also like in psychiatry the outpatient clinic. So when patients can come like in a consultation as if you were in private practice, and there where it's something that's a bit more
relaxed, I assume.
Sorry?
More relaxed, I assume.
More relaxed, or where you have way more autonomy, but where you have way less free time to yourself than for the hospital, since like you have like an agenda a whole day that is planned, and you have consultations, and like you really have like to run through your day kind of, and yeah, so, that kind of looks like my day actually.
Okay, so we have to compare, for example, the surgery. Random person goes in the street, has an accident, breaks a leg, and comes to emergency very quickly. That would be the similar to you to this crisis patients that come
in psychiatry.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the units you work in at the hospital. Of course, there are units that are more like we call them a bit psychiatrie communautaire. So maybe persons that are depressed, burnout, or kind of like that aren't an immediate danger to themselves or to others, and can be like in a unit that's kind of more relaxed. And other patients that are like in an immediate crisis, like for example like acute psychosis or acute like suicidal risk, or even like states of catatonia, but whatever. But to say that like units where the crisis is to be treated are usually closed units, where maybe like the presence of either security guys or securitas, as we call them in Switzerland, or the police in case of like aggression, or also like unfortunately the reality of having to treat people against their will, which is something that has to happen sometimes, which we like it to be a last resort, but still like forcing the treatment on people and injecting them, that's also something that can take place during these moments of crisis. So it's very like it can take like very, very different aspects.
So it's not just a few patients who are staying there, you have more crisis looking like wards, then you have people who are staying there for a longer time kind of wards.
Yeah,
you also have people with more rights of freedom, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and also you have the outpatient ones that
Yeah.
come for weekly consultations or whatever.
Yeah, and you also have like at the hospital the Psychiatry, so for the older people above 65, they have their own units, and the pedopsychiatry, so psychiatry for children.
Other than just visiting patients the rest of the day, I assume you don't visit patients 10 hours in a row. I suppose you see some patients and eventually you document whatever you need to document. Or
Yeah,
cases.
a reality of my job that I don't like, and it's unfortunate, is like all the administrative paperwork that you have to do.
It's like a reality that we cannot escape, right?
Yeah, especially in Switzerland, unfortunately, because well, I have like very harsh opinions about like the Swiss health system, which yes provides a very good like healthcare for its citizens, but I feel like we're kind of slaves to the insurances of Switzerland, which are like all private insurances, and it's a system where they can always, whenever they want, ask us like to report, constantly, like to justify if they actually need to provide treatment for this person, if they actually have to pay for this person. For example, if a person is not able to work and she's sick, well, the insurance of the employer is supposed to pay their salary for a specific amount of days. They would always like try to not pay, find a reason like to say that that person is not sick enough or that she can get back to work, and always have to argue with them and write like tons of reports and like pages like why this person is sick, and always like this constant fight where it seems that the insurances don't trust us as doctors. And this is like a system, that's a system that's inherent to Switzerland, not only in psychiatry, but we always have like to justify to insurances that yes, we know how to do our work.
Yeah, they don't want to pay.
Exactly.
And they want to find reasons why you could be wrong in order
Exactly.
not to. Yeah.
Exactly.
I get it. Going a bit outside of the medical realm, many people who are coming to Switzerland, they are not caring so much right now about the specialty. They are really worried about actually getting to work, about actually getting a foot inside Switzerland. When it comes to psychiatry, how easy, difficult is it to find a position, in your opinion?
So, as you know, there are a lot of available jobs in psychiatry in Switzerland and basically everywhere. It's really the specialty that gets the least love, and we touched a bit on the reasons why. So yeah, if you're just like in the vision of this is a way for me to get like an entry into Switzerland or any other country to start and see what happens next, but I'm absolutely not open to the idea of investing myself in like the job that I do, or appreciating the human aspect of spending time talking with people. You're really not going to have a good time, and you're really not going to appreciate working there.
Because you don't want to do that anyway, right?
Absolutely.
What about another aspect of psychiatry, interesting, when it comes to choosing a specialty, we rarely think about this, well maybe this is a secondary thought, but what about its future? For example, people talk about radiology, we're talking about radiology. Everyone says radiology is going to be the first one that disappears.
Exactly, and it's already the case. There's already AI that can like do a radiologist's job better than the doctors.
So the other day in the news, you can tell if you're black or white, and no one knows why. The radiologist cannot tell between a black or white person, but the AI can.
Really?
And it's already ahead of it. So exactly, some specialties will disappear. Right?
Exactly. Well, this is something I'm really confident about and really comfortable with the idea that if like AI is going to come to replace all of our medical jobs, psychiatry is going to be the last medical profession to disappear. Because like we base our job like in part on the human relation aspect of it, and this is something that really you're not going to be able to replace with a robot. Like
and on top of that, sadly, the diseases and patients that you encounter, they seem to be increasing.
They seem to be increasing. We live like really in a society that is actually that favors the development of mental health, especially like in young persons. If you see the rates of depression and suicide in younger people, it's really catastrophic. that's like the negative aspect of it. The positive aspect of it, that like there is a little bit less stigma about like talking about mental health, and mental health awareness is helping all of that, and that's allowing people that are in need of help in that subject to get the help they need. So regarding like the job or the need in psychiatry, this is something also I'm really confident in saying we're never gonna be out of a job.
You know, I have a colleague at work whose son has depression and wants a psychiatrist, wants to speak with a psychiatrist like right now. And she's been trying to find one, and all of them are booked. All of them are full, and there's no way to talk with a psychiatrist. And this colleague of mine is like really trying to do it, but all of them give her like appointments so many months in advance. That and the problem is that her son is good enough to afford himself an appointment in 3 months, and he's not sick enough or dangerous enough for himself. That
Not
he has
enough
to be
in a
seen right
crisis.
now.
Yeah.
So he's not in a crisis, but he has. Well, I'm not going to go into details of the thoughts he has, but he needs a psychiatrist and just cannot access one there because there's just not enough of them. And I just couldn't believe it.
Well, it's true that like, and even more so in the Swiss-German parts, there's really a lack of professions in psychiatry. For example, I hear about some people that just opened like their private practice, and 2 weeks later they're already booked for the next 6 months. And that's regarding that's not regarding if you're a good or not psychiatrist.
Exactly. These people are not known yet. They don't have a reputation yet.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
So regarding like the situation you were talking about, usually like there are public institutions that have the responsibility to be able to take the people that are in need with a reasonable like time frame. So in conclusion, psychiatry good.
Psychiatry is good. Your job is rather chill. You have to like it because otherwise it can become very annoying to be in presence of these patients when you actually don't have the skills or the willing to be talking to them.
Absolutely. I'm not sorry to interrupt, but the reality also that like you're face to face with people that are suffering and can be suffering really badly, and like at the end that you can have situations like really tough situations where people commit suicide or people can like really put themselves in danger or hurt others. And sometimes like if you're overly invested in those situations, it can really like come back and hurt you. So a rule of life that like I live by in psychiatry, and I think that applies for every job possible, is the results not always dictate the quality of the job that you did. Like I was saying, like it's not always like happy and easy in psychiatry, even though there is a lot of nice aspects to it. Most importantly, the quality of life. For my future, like hoping to open my private practice eventually, I think, and being able to live really comfortably in the financial aspect and having my own hours, being my own boss.
That's already something.
Yeah, that's absolutely really something in the quality of life. Even the quality of life that you can have in an intern is way better than like in other fields.
You know, being your own boss is something that sounds easy, but for example, I chose anesthesia, and only now, a few years into anesthesia, I realized that I cannot open my own practice because it's literally not legal to come to an anesthesiologist to give you a narcosis because, well, it's drugs, you know, that you have you need a reason to get a narcosis. You cannot just open your own clinic. So you're always dependent on the surgeon that wants to operate, or the hospital. So you can never be your own boss.
You're never going to be independent.
That's an amazing aspect of your job.
If you're able to enjoy the human aspect of being a doctor through empathy, helping people, building relationships, and also not minding having a really chill life, and being absolutely your own boss and living like pretty comfortably as well, I really, really urge you like to consider psychiatry. For like this profession that doesn't get any love, that's often misunderstood, but where you have the ability to be a doctor, not in the most conventional way, like out of a white coat, but in the sense of being a helper. It's really that, and also like through empathy and emotions.
Leaving aside the medical part of this conversation, I also wanted to pick your brain when it comes to your experience in Switzerland. Like we said, we both are foreigners here, and we both are Europeans, so the cultural shock is not huge for us.
True.
And yet there is, to some degree, some cultural differences. And if you don't mind, we'll talk a bit about our integration in the Swiss culture.
Absolutely.
How did you feel when it comes to just the workplace? Do you feel any discrimination, let's say? I'm not going to say racism, I'm going to say just discrimination towards you because of who you are, just because you are a foreigner.
Well, regarding that, I gotta say that I got a lot of assets, kind of. So, but for other people like that, I think that's something really important that you're saying. If you don't really speak, if you don't speak the language, that's something that's really not gonna be well appreciated. Like, hey, fucking foreigner, you're coming to our country and you don't speak our language. Like, make an effort.
But see, here's the thing. One question: do they speak? Do the French Swiss people speak a different kind of French other than the classical French?
Globally, we're gonna say no. It's basically the same French, even though the accents can vary a bit, and there are like some small differences. For example, like they say dinner to say lunch.
Okay.
Like for example, like some kind of weird stuff like that, and the way they say numbers. But other than that, no. Like it's pretty easy.
Okay, that's good. That's lucky because when it comes to the German, like I learned German, worked in Germany for some time, came back here, and I don't understand a single word of the Swiss German.
Yeah.
Like it's completely different.
Yeah.
And in my case, for example, there's a big barrier there because they talk to you and you don't understand them. And the nice ones will talk to you in we call it the High German, classical German.
Yeah.
And
Deutsch.
Hochdeutsch. Genau.
Hochdeutsch.
And you will understand, but most of them just speak to you in Swiss.
And a lot of them don't like to speak in the Hochdeutsch because
none of them do.
Yeah.
To be honest, none of them do. But some of them are accommodating and they speak to you in Hochdeutsch, and some of them speak to you in Swiss German. And normally, I have to say, to be honest, for example, when I talk to patients, they talk to me in Swiss German, I answer in normal German, and then they know that I don't speak Swiss German, and they speak in normal German afterwards. I don't even have to tell them, please accommodate to me.
But a lot of them, but sometimes it can be not well perceived, and like especially like maybe on the more radical side of of mindsets.
Sometimes you have the feeling that they speak even a bit more Swiss German. The more you don't understand them, the more they speak a Swiss German
on purpose.
On purpose to force you to say, hey, please, could you speak a high German? And then they speak high German.
Yeah, they just don't want to.
But you have to ask them that, and then you are being unpolite towards them. It's a bit complicated.
Yeah, all of this I wasn't confronted to like in my personal experience, and I'm fluent in French.
And other than the language, any distance coming from the people? Just because you being you, or you being a foreigner?
Maybe that's something I felt way more in surgery and regular medical units than in psychiatry.
Okay.
Like I'm not gonna like sing my own qualities, but I'm a very like pleasant person, I think. God, this isn't going.
It might be going though.
You see, I'm actually an amazing person. That's like very well likable. So.
And other than your experience at work, what about the rest of your life? How is life in Switzerland generally?
Well, now I can say that I've really found my balance in Switzerland. It really wasn't easy at the beginning, but it kind of fits the person that I am. If you're more the kind of person that is like really active, that is like, I don't want to say that I'm like antisocial, but at the same time, like it's true that like you can find like difficulty to build relationships like in Switzerland. But I think that it depends really also on the kind of person that you are. Something that I'm sure I'm not going to be the one to teach you that building relationships in Switzerland is kind of difficult. It depends on the region that you're in, but the way I like to describe Swiss people is that they're very polite but they're not nice.
Okay.
And so yeah, it can be like really quite difficult to build yourself like kind of a network here in Switzerland, and
At least with Swiss people.
at least with Swiss people.
And you don't, even if they are nice to you and you think of them as friends, for example, in my case, so far, out of my whole colleagues at work, I only really went out with one guy who seems to be 50% Swiss, 50% Greek, so maybe that's why. But out of the rest of the colleagues, we haven't yet gone out one single night, not planned or spontaneously. It sort of gives a feeling, at least to me, that you come here to work, end of the story.
But also, like when you start, usually you're not going to be like in one of the major cities of Switzerland, and you're going to be way more in something like on the periphery. And so in those rural areas or like those out-of-town areas, like it's also a bit more difficult like to meet people and like, to find also like kind of like an active lifestyle, like an active social life.
I really appreciate having this conversation with me.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you really for having me. Like I said, talking about my experience, that is so subjective, but I can be like of some help for like the people that I remember very vividly the situation that I was in a few years ago, and I remember the struggle of it. If I can be of some help and like offer some information or some guidance, yeah, I feel like it's my responsibility.
Again, thanks for coming, and
thanks for having
if you
me.
ever want to come back to the channel, then you're more than welcome.
Thank you very much. It was really quite a pleasure, and I'll actually take this opportunity to promote my next book.
Yeah, take care,
You
and
too.
we'll see each other next time.
See each other next time.
Bye bye.
On the couch with your seat.